Snow fell slowly across the quiet alien graveyard. The sky was gray. The wind was cold. And under a broken wooden cross, something moved just a little. It was not the wind. It was not a shadow. It was Kale. Her name was Niari. She was young, maybe 17 in human years. Her skin was light blue, soft and smooth, but now it was pale with cold. Her long dark hair was tangled with snow and mud. She wore only a torn white robe, barely enough to cover her in the freezing weather. Her legs didn't move. They hadn't moved since her family left her here. To die, she was paralyzed. And now she was alone. Niari blinked once. Her eyes were dry. She had no tears left to cry. She couldn't speak. She couldn't scream. All she could do was think and wait for the cold to take her. Her own people had left her here. Her father, her mother, even her older sister. They had said, "You are broken. You will only slow us down. This place is your end." And then they walked away, leaving her under the snow among the graves of their ancestors. Niari stared at the gray sky. She hoped it would end quickly, but then something happened. She heard footsteps, soft at first. Crunch, crunch. They were getting closer. Niari couldn't turn her head, but she heard the steps growing louder. Then a shadow. A tall figure stood over her. He was not alien. He was human. He wore a heavy coat, black boots, and gloves. His face was rough, with short brown hair and tired green eyes. His name was Ethan Hale, a man from Earth traveling through alien worlds, looking for lost tech and forgotten places. He wasn't expecting to find anyone alive. But then he saw her. Niari tried to move her lips. No words came. Only a soft sound like a broken breath. Ethan dropped to one knee. "Oh no." He whispered, "Hey, are you alive?" She blinked once. "Yes," he said quickly, his voice shaking. "You're alive." He touched her neck gently. Her skin was ice cold. "You're freezing," he muttered, pulling off his coat. Without hesitation, he wrapped it around her body. She was shivering, not moving, but her eyes. They were wide and scared. "Don't worry," he said softly. "I got you." He looked around. They were alone. Just graves, snow, and the sound of the wind. "Who did this to you?" he asked. "Who left you here?" Niari blinked twice. Her lips trembled. She couldn't speak. Ethan sighed, then picked her up gently, holding her close to his chest. She was light to light, like she hadn't eaten in days. He carried her to the side of a broken alien cart, half covered in snow. Inside, it was just enough to block the wind. He laid her down on a blanket he kept in his pack. Then he lit a small heater and set up a campfire lamp. Warmth returned slowly. "I don't know who you are," he whispered, "but you're not dying tonight." Niari's heart beat faster. She didn't know why, but for the first time in days, she didn't feel like she was going to die. This man, this human, was not like the others. She watched him open a small pouch. He pulled out a water bottle and lifted her head gently. "Just a sip," he said. The water touched her lips. Cold, but real. She swallowed. Ethan smiled. "That's it. You're going to be okay." She didn't know what to say, but in that moment, she trusted him. The fire glowed softly in the alien graveyard. Outside, the snow kept falling, but inside that broken cart, life had returned. The fire burned quietly, giving soft warmth inside the broken alien cart. Snow still fell outside. The wind still howled. But inside, she was no longer alone. Niari lay wrapped in the human's coat. Her thin alien skin felt strange to the thick fabric, but she held it close with her one working hand. Legs still. Dead. No movement. No feeling. The human sat near her, watching the flames. His name. She still didn't know it. He broke the silence. "I'm Ethan. Ethan Hale." He smiled, but it was small. Tired, gentle. Nyari tried to say something, but her throat only made a soft rasp. Her lips moved. No sound. Ethan said. "It's okay. You don't need to speak right now." She looked at him. Large. Alien eyes were full of pain and confusion. Why was he still here? Why didn't he leave like the others? She had been sure he would walk away, but he hadn't single quotes to Ethan reached into his bag and pulled out something soft. A piece of bread, wrapped in cloth. He gently tore a piece and brought it to her lips. "Eat," he said softly. "You need strength." Eyes widened food she hadn't eaten in days. She opened her mouth slowly and took the piece. It was dry, but her body welcomed it like a gift from the stars. She chewed carefully. Then looked up again. Still, he was there. Still, watching her. Kindly, still. Not afraid. Hours passed, outside. The cold became sharper. Ethan rubbed his hands together and added more scrap wood to the heater. He looked at the girl and shook his head. Who leaves their own daughter in a place like this? He muttered. What kind of people? He didn't understand her language, but her eyes told him everything. The sorrow, the fear. The memory of being left behind. That deep pain didn't need translation. "You're safe now," T said softly. She blinked twice, slowly, meaningfully. He stared at her. "Wait, you understand me?" She blinked once. Yes, his face brightened. "Okay, good. That's good." He thought for a moment. "I don't know your name, but I'll call you Star for now. You fell from the sky and landed in the worst place. But stars don't die easy." Nyari's lips curled. Just a little. A small smile. It surprised her. She hadn't smiled since. She didn't remember when. Later that night, Ethan opened his scanner. It showed a cold reading no threats nearby, but he knew this area was dangerous. Sometimes alien scavengers came to steal relics. Sometimes wild machines hunted warmth. They had to move soon, but how? She couldn't walk, and he was only one man. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "I can't leave you here, but I need something that moves." A cart, a sled, anything. He stood up and stepped outside, scanning the area. Broken crosses, rusted wheels, snow-covered junk. Then he saw it, an old alien wheel sled, half buried in the snow. Heavy, but fixable. He began digging it out. Time passed. Inside the cart, Nyari lay still. The fire dimmed. Her body shook lightly. But she was no longer afraid. Her ears picked up movement outside. She didn't panic. She trusted him. That was strange. Trust had been dead inside her heart for a long time. Ethan came, back inside. Snow in his hair and gloves. "I found something. I think I can turn it into a sled," he said. "Just need some time." He looked at her. "You okay in here?" She nodded slightly. He smiled again. "That's all I need." He opened his bag again this time, pulling out a thin blanket with wires. He wrapped it gently around her legs. "It's heated. It might help. I don't know how your nerves work, but maybe it'll wake something up." She looked down, her legs so still. But for the first time in days, she felt something. It was faint, like a spark. A whisper through her nerves. Her hand moved again. A little more. She looked at him, eyes wide. He noticed. "You felt that?" She nodded. Hope entered her chest like a light breaking through the clouds. Later, as night deepened, Ethan sat beside her again. He lit a small lamp, casting a soft glow over the cart. "You know?" "I didn't come here to find anyone," he said. "I was just looking for tech. Ruins. I've been alone a long time." He glanced at her. "But maybe this is where I was supposed to be." She looked into his eyes. She still couldn't speak. But her eyes said it all. "Please don't leave. Please stay." And without words, he answered, "I'm not going anywhere." The next morning, the sky was still gray. Snow continued to fall like ash over the alien graveyard. The broken crosses stood tall and silent, like frozen guardians of the dead. But inside the damaged cart, life was still holding on. Ethan woke up before the sun. His back ached from sleeping on the hard ground, but he didn't complain. His first thought was the girl. She was still breathing, still alive. Her eyes opened slowly as he moved closer. "Morning, star." He whispered. She blinked once. A soft welcome. He reached out and checked the heating blanket. It had kept her legs warm all night. Then, without expecting it, something changed. Her right toe moved. Just a little, but Ethan saw it. He gasped. "Did you feel that?" She looked at her foot, shocked. Her lips parted slightly. It was real. She had felt it too. Ethan stepped outside and worked quickly. He had found a broken alien sled the night before. Now he worked to fix it using wires, tools, and scraps from nearby debris. He cut rubber tubing, tightened the rusted wheels, and reinforced the back with metal rods. His hands were red from the cold, but he didn't stop. From time to time, he peeked inside the cart to check on her. Each time, her eyes followed him. She still couldn't speak, but she never looked away. It was like she was afraid he'd vanish. If she blinked too long, he understood. She had been left before. She feared being left again by afternoon. The sled was ready. Ethan pulled it next to the cart. Then, slowly and carefully, he lifted Nyari into it. He placed pillows and cloth beneath her to keep her steady. "You're light," he said softly. "Too light." She looked at him, then down at herself. Her body was weak, thin from hunger and cold. But now, she had hope. She was no longer a forgotten girl. Lying in the snow, she was someone being saved. They began moving. Ethan pulled the sled across the graveyard, step by step. His boots crunched the snow, and the sled creaked behind him. The path was slow. The wind was sharp. But he didn't stop. Nyari watched the world pass by. She saw the gravestones of her ancestors. The same ones her family had marched past when they left her behind. She wondered if her sister had cried when they abandoned her. No, she knew the truth. They had walked away without a second thought, and now, this man, a stranger from another world, was risking his life for her. Why? What did he see in her that her own blood didn't? That night, they stopped near a giant alien statue, half buried in the snow. His face was cracked, but it looked like an old warrior. Ethan used the space behind it as shelter. He made a new fire and gave Nyari a warm drink from a small thermal flask. She took it with both hands now. Slowly, her strength was returning. He noticed. "You're improving," he said with a smile. "Pretty soon, you'll be walking." She gave him a weak smile in return. Then she lifted one hand. With shaky fingers, she pointed at his chest. He blinked. "Me." She nodded once. Then her lips moved. Not a full word. Just a soft whisper. ... dash. His eyes widened. He leaned in. "Say that again, E." Then, his heart stopped for a second. She had said his name. Not perfect. Not strong. But real. He felt something tight in his chest. Emotion. Joy. He knelt beside her. "Your voice, you're getting it back." She nodded, eyes watery. Then she reached for his hand. He took it, holding it gently. She looked at him, her voice barely a breath. "Why you?" He understood what she meant. Why had he helped her? Why had he stayed? He looked at the fire, then back at her. Because, he said quietly, I've seen too much pain. Too many people walk away. I won't be one of them. The wind picked up again, far in the distance, hidden by fog. Something moved fast. Ethan didn't notice it yet, but something or someone was watching them. The past wasn't done with. Nyari and Ethan was about to learn. She wasn't just any abandoned girl. She had been left for a reason, and that reason was coming for them both. The wind had slowed, but the night remained cold. Ethan stayed awake beside the fire. His eyes scanned the horizon. Something in his gut felt strange, like they were not alone anymore. Beside him, Nyari lay in the sled, half asleep. Her body still weak, but her spirit was stronger than ever. She had spoken. She had moved her toe. She had whispered his name. It gave him hope, and it gave her something even greater a reason to live. In the middle of the night, Nyari suddenly gasped. Ethan turned. You okay? She looked terrified. Her hand shook as she reached for him. What is it? He asked. She opened her mouth slowly. Her voice was raspy, broken, but her words were clear. They're coming. He froze. She blinked. My family? Not alone. Before Ethan could ask more, his scanner beeped. Motion? Detected. He jumped to his feet and looked out from behind the broken statue. Figures were approaching through the snow-tall shadows, moving fast, dressed in dark armor, weapons glowing faintly under the moonlight. Nyari's clan, the same ones who had left her to die, but now they were coming back. Why? Ethan grabbed his rifle and stood in front of her sled. I won't let them take you. Jiri shook her head. You don't understand. She pointed to her neck hat, the faint silver markings etched into her skin. Ethan leaned in. Alien writing. Old, burned into her. What is this? She whispered. Mark of exile. Cursed. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Your own people marked you. Like this? She nodded, tears filling her eyes. Said I bring death. Bad luck, monster. Ethan looked at her closely. This girl, this kind soul, was no monster. You're not cursed, he said. You're a survivor. The shadows grew closer. Ethan readied his weapon. He didn't know how many were out there. Didn't care. He would not let them take her again. Nyari reached for his hand. I'm sorry. He looked down. For what? I bring danger. He shook his head. You bring truth, and someone has to stand for it. She smiled faintly, her voice trembling. You call me what? Ethan blinked. What do you mean? She pointed to her chest. You called me something, he remembered. I called you Star. She nodded. What is Star? Okay. Ethan knelt beside her. A star is something that burns bright. Even in the darkest sky, the first alien stepped into view. Tall, yellow eyes. Holding a spear made of plasma. Behind him were three more. They looked at Ethan, then at Nyari. The leader spoke in harsh alien tongue Ethan didn't understand, but Nyari did. She whispered, they want to take me. Say I'm still cursed. Say you are corrupted. For touching me. Ethan raised his weapon. They can say what they want. They're not taking you. The alien leader laughed and pointed his spear at Ethan. But before anyone moved, Nyari did something unexpected. She sat upon her own. It was slow, shaky, but she did it. Her voice rose. I am not cursed. The clan fell silent. She pulled the blanket from her legs, bruised, weak. But she stood up, one foot, then the other. Her knees wobbled but Ethan rushed behind her, steadying her. Easy, he whispered. I've got you. She pointed at the aliens. You left me to die. You called me worthless. You threw me to the cold. But this man, this human, he gave me back my name, my strength. She looked at Ethan. You called me Star. He nodded, his eyes wide with pride. I am Star now, she declared. Not curse, not death. The clan leader lowered his spear slowly. He stared at her in silence, his face unreadable. Then, he turned and walked away. One by one, the others followed. Not a word, not a fight. They simply vanished into the snow. Ethan turned to her. You did that? She looked up at him, tears in her eyes. We did that. Then her legs gave out, and she fell forward, but he caught her, right into his arms. He held her tightly. I told you. He whispered, you're not a burden. She rested her head against his chest, for the first time. She said, I believe you. Ethan held Niari in his arms as the cold wind circled around them. Her legs had collapsed. Her strength was gone again. But the fact that she stood Evan for a moment was something Ethan would never forget. She had faced her past, her cruel clan, and they had backed away, but he could feel it in his bones. This wasn't over. That night, he built a better shelter with snow bricks and torn metal sheets. Inside, he wrapped her legs again and gave her warm water with drops of vitamin serum. She looked weak, her eyes heavy, but her heart stronger than ever. Ethan whispered, you did something amazing today. Niari blinked slowly. Not alone. He smiled. No, not anymore. But deep inside, he was worried. Why had her clan really come back? It wasn't guilt. It wasn't care. There had to be another reason. The next morning, Ethan noticed something. Strange tracks, not the ones from last night. These were fresh, mechanical, circular. Heavy, his scanner pinged in known signal. Detected. He zoomed in with his optic lens. His face hardened. It wasn't her clan this time. It was a scavenger drone. A tall, four-legged machine with rotating arms, long claws, and red glowing eyes. These machines roamed graveyards, looking for valuable tech hands sometimes. For survivors, once it locked onto a living target, it didn't stop. Ethan ran back to the shelter. Niari, he said quickly, we have to move. She opened her eyes. What is it? Something worse than your clan. He packed quickly. His hands didn't shake, but his chest felt heavy. Niari tried to sit up. I can walk. Ethan gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Not today. Let me carry you. No, she whispered. Please. Let me try. She gritted her teeth and pushed herself up, using her arms. Her legs wobbled, but held barely. Ethan brought the sled closer. All right, walk if you can. But if you fall, no pride, okay? I'll carry you. She nodded once, and together they started moving. The sky had turned darker. The graveyard seemed endless, filled with old machines, bones, and frozen trees. Ethan kept scanning the area. The drone was still behind them, but not far. It was hunting, and it had locked onto a heat signature, knee. I single quotes as they reached an old broken tower at the edge of the graveyard. Ethan guided her inside. It was tall and made of black stone with glowing alien script on its walls. Long ago, it had been a watchtower. Now, it was a ruin. He led her to the top and looked down. The drone was moving faster. Now, climbing over graves, jumping over bones. Its red eyes scanned the land like a wolf sniffing blood. We need a plan, Ethan muttered. Niari looked at him. I can distract it. He turned quickly. No, never. Her eyes were calm. It wants me, not you. That's why I won't let you go, he said. You're not bait. You're not a target. She looked down. Then what am I? He stepped closer. You're someone I want to protect. Suddenly, the tower shook. Boom. The drone had arrived. It fired a pulse blast at the side of the building. Rubble fell. The structure groaned. Ethan grabbed Niari. "We have to jump, she gasped. "I can't." He threw a smoke charge down the stairwell and turned toward a broken window. "Hold on to me." She wrapped her arms around his neck. Ethan ran, then leaped. They hit the snow hard. Ethan groaned, his shoulder burning. But Niari was safe in his arms. He pulled her onto the sled and pushed off as the drone roared behind them. Thump, thump, thump. It chased them down the hill, firing blue streaks of light. Snow exploded around them. Ethan used his boots to steer, pulling the sled behind him like a wild racer. "Hold on," he shouted. Niari covered her head and held the ropes. She looked back. The drone was gaining faster, louder, closer. Ethan spotted a canyon ahead, a narrow gap between two cliffs. He turned sharply. The sled bounced. Niari nearly fell but held on. They sped toward the canyon. The drone followed blindly. Right before the edge, Ethan tossed an energy grenade behind him. He didn't stop to look. The explosion lit up the sky. The drone flew through the smoke and slammed into the cliff wall. It screamed and collapsed into pieces. Silence followed. Only snow and steam remained. Ethan dropped to his knees. Niari gasped, "You're bleeding." He wiped blood from his temple. "It's just a scratch." She looked at him, shaking. "You saved me." Again, he smiled through the pain. "That's what friends do." Her voice was soft. "Friends." He nodded. "Or maybe more." Her cheeks turned a light shade of violet, a blush in her species. She looked away shyly, then whispered, "Don't leave me." "Ethan." He leaned in and held her close. "Never," he promised. Snow still drifted down from the sky like soft ash. The wreckage of the scavenger drone steamed in the canyon behind them. Ethan sat against a rock, breathing hard, blood on his forehead. Niari sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his. They were safe, for now, but safety never lasted long. In a place like this, Ethan looked up at the sky. "We can't stay out here," he whispered. "We need shelter, real shelter." Niari looked down the valley and pointed toward the east. Her voice was soft, tired, but steady. "There's a crashed ship, old, deep in ice." Ethan turned to her. "You know the place?" She nodded. "My people? Used it once, abandoned after war. It still has tech." That was enough. Ethan helped her back onto the sled. His own wounds ached, but he didn't let her see. He pulled the sled across the snow, following the direction she had given. By nightfall, the shape of a ship appeared in the fog. It was huge, half buried in the side of a frozen hill. Its outer hull was broken in places, but the front looked strong enough to hide inside. The alien letters on the side were faded, but Niari could still read them. "On her vessel, Solera." She looked down. "It was once my mother's ship." Ethan helped her through a crack in the side. Inside, the air was cold and dead, but the walls still hummed faintly. Power that meant hope. They found an old med chamber near the back of the ship, dusty, cracked but still functional. Ethan pressed his palm to the scanner. It glowed. Lights flickered on. The pod opened slowly, like a sleeping beast waking after years of silence. "This could heal you," he whispered. Niari's eyes widened. "I'm afraid." He knelt beside her. "You've survived worse than this." She looked at the chamber, then at him. "Will you stay?" "While it works," he smiled. "I'll be right here, always." Ethan lifted her gently and placed her into the pod. It hissed as it scanned her body. Red lights passed over her legs, spine, and nervous system. Words flashed on the screen. Neural disruption detected. Muscle atrophy, partial spinal blockage. Initiating regeneration protocol. The pod closed with a soft click. Inside. Niari was still, her eyes closed, her breathing slowed. She had entered healing sleep. Ethan sat on the cold floor, staring at the pod. Hours passed. The fire in the corner flickered. The wind howled outside. But inside the old ship, time stood still. He thought about Earth, about the war, about all the people he'd lost. And now, here he was, on a forgotten alien world, watching over a girl he didn't know a week ago, but who now meant everything. Suddenly, the ship lights blinked. Warning, energy levels dropping. Ethan cursed under his breath. Not now. He rushed to the ship's main core. It was leaking heat from an open panel. He worked fast, using wires and tools to redirect power back to the med pod. Sparks flew. The metal was hot, but he got it working again. When he returned to the pod, something had changed. The chamber opened. Warm. Mist spilled out. And Niari was sitting up, not weak, not shaking, but steady. Her eyes opened slowly. Clearer than before, she looked at Ethan and smiled. I can feel everything. Ah! Ethan's mouth dropped open slightly. You can walk. She nodded, then swung her legs out of the pod. She placed her feet on the floor and stood, wobbly but strong. Step by step, she walked toward him. He couldn't believe it. Tears formed in his eyes. You did it. She reached out and held his face gently. You did it too. The ship shook slightly. A distant rumble echoed through the halls. Ethan snapped back to alertness. Did you hear that? Niari nodded. Something's coming. They moved toward the ship's observation window. Outside, dark ships were landing in the distance. Ethan squinted. That's not your clan. Niari's eyes went wide. No, that's worse. He turned to her. Who? She whispered. The Ya. Ones who cursed me and want me dead. The final battle wasn't over yet. But now she could walk. Now she could fight. And beside her stood a human who refused to let go. The sky over the graveyard turned dark as 3 black alien ships landed near the edge of the frozen hill. Their engines screamed like monsters. The air cracked with heat as doors opened and shadows stepped out, tall, armored figures with glowing helmets and heavy plasma weapons. Inside the wrecked ship, Ethan stood beside Niari, watching from the frost-covered window. His hand went to his rifle. Her hand went to his. They're here for you, Ethan said. She nodded slowly. Yes, they are. Her legs trembled not from weakness, but from memory. These were not just strangers. They were the High Ones, elders from her own bloodline, leaders of the old world, the ones who had sentenced her to exile and death. They had come to finish what they started, but they didn't know what had changed. Niari turned to Ethan, her voice calm. You don't have to stay. This is my fight. He shook his head without a second thought. Then, it's mine too. Her lips curved into the softest smile. Thank you. Again. He checked his rifle. Let's welcome them, shall we? The 2 of them stepped out of the ship. Snow swirled in the wind as they stood at the edge of the icy hilltop. Side by side, the High Ones saw her hand paused. The tallest one stepped forward, his voice deep and mechanical. You live. Niari nodded. I walk. You defy the will of the elders. I defy cruelty. You walk only because of him. The alien pointed at Ethan. A human? Weak. Unclean. Ethan raised an eyebrow. I've been called. Worse. The leader raised his weapon. He dies. You return in chains. Niari stepped in front of Ethan. No, she said loudly. This man carried me when no one else did. He gave me fire when I was cold. He fed me when I could not eat, and he stood beside me when even my own mother wouldn't. She raised her hand, and her fingers began to glow with pale light. Ethan blinked. "What is that?" I gift. She whispered. It was never a curse. It was power. The high ones hesitated. "She awakens," one of them said. "Her blood is true." "She is dangerous now," said another. The leader shouted, "End her now." But it was too late. Nyari lifted both arms in with them. The ice around her responded. Crystals rose from the ground like blades, forming a wall between them and the high ones. The snow itself moved at her command. They opened fire, but the blasts bounced off the frozen shield. Ethan dropped to one knee and returned fire. His shot struck one soldier, sending him crashing into the snow. Nyari stepped forward, glowing brighter now. Her voice shook the air. I was paralyzed, forgotten, thrown in the cold to rot. But I rose. The ground cracked beneath her dot. The soldiers panicked. She shouted again. "A coup left me in a grave, but I built my life on top of it." Ethan watched. In awe. She was. Incredible. Not a weak girl anymore. Not cursed, not broken. She was reborn. The high ones retreated as the hill began to shake. Their ship engines screamed as they took off into the sky, leaving behind smoke and fear. Nyari lowered. Her arms dot silence returned. Only the wind remained. She dropped to one knee. Exhausted, Ethan ran to her and caught her before she fell. "You did it," he said, smiling. She looked up at him with glassy eyes. "We did it." Later, inside the ship, Ethan made a fire again. This time, it was warm not just because of heat, but because of peace. Nyari sat beside him, her hand resting over his. "I was ready to die when you found me," she whispered. He smiled. "I was ready to stay alone forever, until you spoke my name." She looked into his eyes. "So, what now?" He chuckled. "We fix this ship. We leave this graveyard. We find a place to live. Together." Her voice trembled with quiet joy. Together sounds perfect. The stars outside began to shine brighter. Above the snow-covered graves, wind carried away the last signs of the past. She had been abandoned, but she was never alone again. She had been cursed, but now she was his miracle.